It's been a while since I've made a video here talking about books or writing or reading. And I've been reading some and I've been writing a lot, but I just haven't been making videos. So I really want to get back to that. And today we're going to talk about a book that I took a long time to read. I didn't read it in school, and I don't really know why it's taken me this long to read it. But that book is Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck. I've never read anything by John Steinbeck. And obviously, East of Eden, Grapes of Wrath, those seem to be kind of the big ones, the ones that people talk about when they talk about John Steinbeck, as well as Of Mice and Men. And I just didn't ever get around to it, and I don't know why. And I've talked about this on previous videos, but I think some books are most valuable to people at certain times in their life. And so be that as a child, reading a children's book is more impactful and makes more sense. And a book with heavier adult themes read as a child or a teenager, and I don't mean adult themes in an inappropriate way, but I mean more heavy, mature, potentially philosophical concepts. Reading those kind of books as a younger person, you might not get the full weight of what's trying to be portrayed in that story. And so potentially not reading Steinbeck younger was a good thing. I went into the book. I've been not on a reading slump, but not necessarily reading the most amount of books in the shortest amount of time. I was kind of taking my time. I was doing other things. And so reading had not been a priority. And my friends and I, we have a podcast together, the Right Word Podcast. I'll put a link in the description. But on that podcast, we're coming up with ideas, things to talk about for our episodes. And one of them was a list of writing tips and advice from Steinbeck himself. And so I said, well, I would like to read some Steinbeck before doing that episode. And so I went to the library and I got Grapes of Wrath, Cannery Row, and this one here, Of Mice and Men. And I read this one first. It was the shortest one, it was the quickest one. And it blew me away. It's one of those books. It's one of those books that when I finish it, you just kind of sit there and you just kind of soak in everything that you just read and just consumed. It's very short. I read it in one day, and I had the sense, kind of the feeling that when I finished, I missed a bunch. There was so much more that he was trying to say. Everything in it had so much value and so much importance. And it's more than just kind of a tragic, sad story. It's not even, is it even tragic and sad? It's so real. It's so lifelike. And I know that's maybe pretentious and trying to be kind of, sitting in English class, talking to your professor, your teacher, and you're trying to get this, pull these little things out of these stories. And this does feel very much like one where you would go, oh yeah, you read this in, high school or college or something in your English class. And it's, you're really diving into the weeds and we're really getting philosophical with it. But in this case, it seems to make sense. It's so deep and there's so many facets to it and so many angles that kind of pull and tug at little bits of humanity and little pieces of truth that we can all see ourselves in different varying ways, things that we want, things that we don't want, things that we would like to be, things that we are afraid that we might be. And just in all the characters in the story, it's extremely short. I mean, look at this thing. This is, there's nothing to it as far as, excess. It's exactly what it needs to be. And it's interesting because I'll make a video at some point talking about the difference between very short books and very long books and the value of brevity versus the value of extension and kind of digging into things and kind of comparing those. But in this book, I just, it's so little, and the story only spans a couple days, a weekend really. And there's just so much in it. I can't stop thinking about it. And one of the things that's really interesting that I want to touch on, and I don't want to make this the longest video ever, but I wanted to touch on something that I mentioned earlier in the sadness, the depression, the kind of weightiness of the story. I remember my mom was a big proponent of not reading Steinbeck. And she's a happy person. She likes to read happy things. If there's a happy ending, she's all for it. She doesn't want the doom and gloom. And so a book that would be sad, that would have a sad ending, she's not interested in as much. She reads a lot. She reads a lot of books. And so for years she said, yeah, John Steinbeck, I don't really get why he's acclaimed. His books are so sad. And they're just, if you want to go into a depression, read John Steinbeck. And obviously she's being glib, but I didn't necessarily avoid reading his books because of that. I just was interested in other things, fantasy, science fiction. And to the best of my knowledge, he doesn't write in those genres. And so when I finally got to reading this book, I did find it's sad because, characters suffer, and there is this sense of kind of, no matter what you do, there's kind of this course that will be set. But it felt real and it felt human, and the things that the characters want, and I'm trying to avoid spoilers because not that it's the most, spoiler heavy book in the sense of a giant, reveal at the end or anything like that. But I think, I went into it not knowing anything about it. I just opened it up and read the book. And so I was very much surprised in what it was. And I think that allowed me to be entertained by it more and be impacted by it more without having any preconceived notions. So I would recommend that. And so that's why I'm trying to avoid talking about it in any sort of naming characters or specific themes or anything like that. But there is a sense of kind of, sadness, I guess I would say. But such is life. That we have that as well in our real life outside of fiction books. So just to me, when something does so well a job of putting a mirror up to humanity and to what we are as people, it kind of transcends the sadness that there might be within it. Because in the sorrow and in the pain of some of the characters, we see ourselves, like I mentioned earlier. And I'm maybe just kind of looping around because to me, that's the central thing of this book, is that it's just so real, and has so much in it that it just has value. So I rambled a little bit because I don't want to give anything away. And I'm sure the vast minority of people who haven't read Steinbeck, who are literary, people who consider themselves deep readers. There's maybe young people who were in my boat who haven't gotten around to it, or it's not in your curriculum for school as it wasn't for mine. And so you just don't get to it. But I think, it's, go to your library, find it if you can. It's a brilliant little piece of fiction that is more than fiction. I will say that after reading it, I was so convinced that it was such a important book to read, and just a very well done, well written book that meant more than just a story about sadness, that I convinced my mom to read it again. And she was very apprehensive, did not want to read it again. Like I mentioned, she's very consistent in trying to find books that have a happy ending or are more lighthearted. And so in convincing her, I just assured her that it's not depressing. It's not sad. It doesn't tear you away from the joy of life. It just makes you think. And so she did read it, and we did have a nice chat about it. And that's really the beauty of books, is reading them and then being able to talk with other people about them. And so I was able to learn, something about her from her experiences in her younger life when she read the book. And we were able to talk about how, where we are now in life, and how it can, we can see that it means something and how well it's done. And so it was a very nice shared moment between my mother and I reading this book. And again, it's so short that you could, if you only have one copy and you have a friend, you could both read it in the same day and then talk about it at the end of the day. Those are my thoughts on John Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men. I know the glasses are gone. The mustache is here. I've not been making videos in a long time. I want to get back to it. I have a big back catalog of books that I've read that I need to make reviews about, and just other topics that I'd like to talk about. And so try to make another run at making consistent videos. So we'll see how that goes. But I appreciate anybody who's watching, anybody who's subscribed up to this point, likes, comments, all that stuff. Let me know if you've read anything by John Steinbeck and what are his best works, as well as if you've read Of Mice and Men, and if you think it's as groundbreaking and as important as I think it is, and if it touched you as much as it touched me, or if as my mother used to believe, it is just depressing and sad and not worth reading. Thanks for watching another video on the YouTube channel. We will see you next time with more books and more writing and more reading.